economic survey. It had come on the 31st day one of the Parliament budget session. So the basics of survey, it has no legal backing at all. It is a review of the economy of the country in the year gone by and going by the trends, domestic and global, what should be the policies the country should follow so as to tap its potential fully. That's a survey. So we had a survey. Who writes it? The Chief Economic Advisor. And what is his position? He is an advisor, Chief Economic Advisor. And does he take the guidance of the Finance Minister? Yes, he does. What you find in the survey, is it reflected in the budget? Surprisingly, some of the words in the survey have been spoken by the Finance Minister herself. At least I can tell you 2-3 things. I can tell you 2 things for certain. One is the network products, another is the netting. Both I'll explain a little later down the line. You know, this survey is focused on wealth creation. Though I thought the responsibility of the government is not only wealth creation but also wealth distribution. It doesn't talk too much about that, or maybe none at all. It doesn't matter. To us, it matters to the country, but to us it doesn't matter. So wealth creation, you know, it is impacted by the Adam Smith. Adam Smith was a long time back, 250 years back. They are feeling nostalgic about Adam Smith, and Adam Smith talked of only one hand, the invisible hand. Our survey talks about 2 hands, the hand of trust also. See, what is this invisible hand? The hand you can't see, but it is there. The concept behind all of us know, which is there is no need to regulate the economy. Why? Because we regulate ourselves. We are rational people. Our behavior, be it consumer, be it a seller, be it the maker, is rational. So there is no scope for irrationality. So the role of the government is not one of regulation, but only supply of public goods, including police, judiciary, armed forces. Is that right? Nobody thinks it is right. Adam Smith was 250 years ago. He only said, work hard, we work hard, we are driven by self-interest, and that includes, not only production but also innovation, creation and all that. But the euphoria about rationality has not been borne out. And there was, as I said, so much of poverty. Poverty is because of the assumption of rationality which is not there. How is it that you have the potential is 8%, you are growing at 4.5%? Because of that, there is so much of poverty, joblessness. If the economy has to operate on rationality as the guiding force, all these malcontents won't be there. So everyone is convinced that there has to be state regulation, be it for environment, be it for equity, be it for any other socially desirable purpose. So there has to be. Why the economic survey should be euphoric about Adam Smith, at least a lot of people could not figure out. But the positive side of the euphoria is these are the times when we have to stress on efficiency, innovation, expansion of markets. And the euphoria, I guess, the hidden reason why it is euphoric is because we have seen how state regulation can damage the economy. We have seen state regulation, how it damages the economy. And take Vietnam, it is Adam Smith. Take, Bangladesh also, it is. So for them, Adam Smith is expand the scope of markets, and that will expand growth. And Adam Smith typically also is trickle down. What is Adam Smith? Trickle down. When you liberalize, see, she builds a housing complex that creates employment, that creates demand for goods and services, and then all the people living there require groceries. They have to commute, petrol, diesel, vehicles, metro, and then schools, colleges, who knows what else. So all these things have a trickle-down effect benefits. So just to stop at Adam Smith is not right, but to kickstart it with Adam Smith is right. So that's okay, wealth creation. But then the survey also talks about trust. See, trust can be a force multiplier, but why? There must be also a reason why we don't trust. See, there are lots of reasons why we don't trust. Just to say it's a public good, number one. The more we trust, the more we can trust. It doesn't get exhausted, number two. And then, see, we have a tax charter, Nirmala Sitharaman's tax charter, for which she is going to change the Income Tax Act. It's not like Citizens Charter that you have it written on in the notice board. No, IT Act is going to be changed. Citizens, the taxpayers, will be told X, Y, Z are your rights, and they are enforceable. And so, will that elicit the trust of the people? But taxpayers are only, tax filers are less than 6 crore. Taxpayers are far, far less than that. So that is only one way of bringing up trust between the citizens and others. There are so many other channels where you are required to get the people to be confident about governance and so on and so forth. So, but to talk of trust is very good, because if you have trust, then you will go for model land leasing law. If you have trust, then you know there can be social capital. Trust is what? Trust is social capital. Coming together on common values, we trust each other, and that's how we create capital, which is a precondition for every other form of capital. 10 of us work together for a vaccine for coronavirus. What's behind this? Social capital, working together, the excellence, the innovation, and trade secrets also. We have to trust each other. 10, 15 of us, we have to put trust in one another for trade secrets. So trust is a virtue, a value, a property that you can't exaggerate the value of it. But how do you build trust? Is it behavior? Is it an enforceable charter? Trust requires so much. Land reforms, I want to have the land consolidated. We are 100 farmers, each one has 5 acres, and then 50 acres will do a lot for us, but we don't trust each other. Why is that we don't trust each other? Because your grandfather looked at my grandmother in a manner that the whole, I don't like it. So since then we stopped trusting each other. And we don't belong to the same caste, religion, whatever else. So, trust is it has far deeper roots than the economic survey can figure out. But it's made a good start. That is about the two hands of trust and value creation, wealth creation. the invisible hand. In the two hands, one hand you can't see because it's invisible. The other hand you can see because that's a hand of trust. Either way, you have two hands which are real and they should do the work together. And the third one here will be, he says, the survey says, crony capitalism. See, markets are wonderful. You are studying so hard, you are giving your best because of markets. Markets, the best survives in the market. And so we give our best. And markets are good, but if the markets, instead of following the rule of law, instead of having a level playing field, instead of the same law applying to all, instead of impartiality of the government, instead of all fair principles and, free markets, if you have some business leaders who are the cronies of the system, if they are benefiting, then that will be an attack on the, rule of law, taxation system, banking system, and the people's faith, that trust. Why is it that people are losing trust in the banks? Why is it that the Honorable Finance Minister made the eligibility for deposit insurance up to 5 lakh? Because people's trust in the banking system has to be whipped up. At 1 lakh, people are not trusting. 5 lakh, they will trust. Small finance bank, I'm not able to trust because it's only up to 1 lakh. Already it's a small bank. Why should I put money there? I'll go to SBI, who is too big to fail. But with the 5 lakh, you're getting the trust of the depositors even into the small banks. Trust again. So trust depends upon how the banks work, the NPAs, and how the cronies are bringing down the TQ, trust quotient in the system, the cronies. That's why the survey says the cronies should be out, and they have made a calculation. If you did not lend to cronies, you know how much emphasis on Narega could be there? Narega gives, meaningful, gainful, green employment to crores of people, and so much more can be done if only you did not lend to the cronies. So crony capitalism will take away all the value of capitalism. You will have only cronyism, and that can be very bad. Who knows it better than us, we the people of India? Because we know where the NPAs are standing and we also know that because of the banking crisis, India's growth potential to a considerable extent is not able to, come to the surface, etc. And if you kick the cronies out, and if you have rule of law, then you must also have, that's not enough. You must also have the, Adam Smith is, as I told you, he kickstarts your faith in the markets. But after that, you have to design your economic policy for the needs of the economy. So he says that, we must employ a lot of people. We are globalized. He used the term network products. That is, take mobile, take Apple phone, parts, and innovation, design, and assemblage. All this takes place in so many countries in the world. There's a global value chain that accounts for the making of the product from the raw material stage to the final product being sold. He says, the survey says that India, given its good potential, the cheapness of labor, and its experience with the electronics industry, and now that Samsung is here, all the Chinese companies here, you could have assemble in India. Does it mean make in India has not taken off? No, that's the wrong way to see it, because as I told you, we have to be fair in our interpretation. Make in India requires to be sold and to sell you say make for India, and then you say that design in India, create in India, so that you bring in research and development also. And now we're saying assemble in India, the network products. And the survey says you're going to employ a lot of people, you're going to export that, and there'll be greater purchasing power for people within the country, and you'll have a lot of foreign currency as well when you export. All these advantages, as if we are children. The survey talks about all these advantages. Like you tell children, you see it will create employment. But I'm not content with assembling in India. You have to make in India. You have to make apples in India, and our engineers have to design the apple, have to create the apple, have to take it to the next generation. All that ideally I would like India to do, but till you can do that, this assemble in India can give a stimulus to your job intensity, exports, foreign currency, and your purchasing power, etc., etc. I have no problem about assembling India. Then he says, for assembling in India also, when people come to the country, ease of doing business has to be provided. Ease of living we will come to later. Let's do business easily at least. All the rankings that the World Bank gave, the survey is not content with that, because if you break down the components that make up the ease of doing business of the World Bank, enforcement of the contract in India, it happens very slow. Like they gave an example in the survey. To get a gun license, it requires 19 documents. To start a restaurant, it takes about 45. But country gun, it takes no license at all. You see, from Munger, the whole point is that if you want people to come to the country, assemble India, make in India, create in India, whatever. They want business at the speed of thought, like Bill Gates. And for that, you have to, create all the necessary regulatory infrastructure, administrative, virtual infrastructure, and of course, physical also. Okay, you assemble in India. After that, you are stuck in India. You have to take it to the port or the airport. From there, you have to send it to so many countries. Assembling for what? We don't have so much of market. In course of time, we'll have market. And once you go to the port, it seems the turnaround time for importing is far less than exporting. This is very curious. You can import far more easily than export. We should be able to export far more easily. So, your port infrastructure, all that has to pick up. This is the wake-up call about make in India a success. Then you see right now, there is a lot of euphoria in the country about disinvestment, privatization. Typically taking off from Adam Smith, the survey says that, you have to privatize. And they have done a survey of 11 public sector enterprises that were privatized. You remember there used to be a company called VSNL, Computer Maintenance Corporation, and they were all taken by Tatas. You have had IPCL, you had Paradip Port, etc., etc. They're all doing tremendously well now. Nobody denies it. See Hindustan Copper. It is very safe in the hands of Sterlite, Vedanta, etc. Nobody denies the benefits of privatization, but the only problem is, why are you privatizing? They talk about this also. You are privatizing so that you can gain some money. That money has to be put back into social and physical infrastructure, keeping the citizen in the center. You're not privatizing for money to fill up your revenue deficit so that you get the money for paying salary. No. You are, as a part of a wider framework of reforms, you are privatizing so that it's kept in good hands, productivity, production, technology modernization, diversification, stakeholder benefit, and so many other benefits are there. One of them is the financial mobilization. But as important as the need to put into the hands of the private sector, a public sector company, you must also keep in mind, what do you do with the financial resources mobilized? You have to use it for the long-term development of the country. You should not blow it up, you should not fritter it away, because once you sold a BPCL, there is no one more BPCL to sell. So that you have to use the BPCL financial resources very, very, wisely, productively, and so on and so forth. But the survey does not talk about, you see, we also should have a social clause about privatization, and it's not that you can sell anything. If you are running it, though of course in today's national discourse, some of the points I'm making won't find a place, but the fact also remains, if there is a public sector unit which is profitably running, then where is the need for privatization? But that question is not being asked these days. What they are asking is, how are you going to use the money? That's okay. Wherever the dialogue stops, that is also okay. And then he says, there's some sort of a misplaced euphoria here. Singapore government entity is there. It's a holding company. Its name is Temasek. And all the public sector divestment they decide. They hold the shares of so many companies. Take India. The survey is saying, set up a Temasek-like entity, corporate entity, and about 30-40 public sector units you want to privatize and divest. All of them, the divestment strategy will be worked out in all its detail and method by the Temasek-like corporate entity, so that they have uniform standards for it, number one. And all the divestment proceeds, what will happen to them and so on and so forth, they'll lay down in law, etc., etc. So this is okay, nothing sensational about it. It is basically a change in the model. Today we have DIPAM. What's wrong with DIPAM? It's a part of the finance ministry, and it works according to the alternative mechanism, which is headed by the union finance minister. So, merely changing the model of the model that the type of department that does it hardly makes any difference, because when you are selling Concor, you are selling it. When you are selling BPCL, you are selling it. When you are selling Shipping Corporation, you are selling it. When you are selling Northeastern Energy Corporation, you are selling it. So one is not enamored of this idea, but it's okay. But there's no problem. That was August of 2018, there was a huge, systemically important NBFC could not service its loan to some of the big banks in the country, IL and FS, for whatever reason. The survey is concerned. Survey says that, we should construct an index, NBFC Health Index, so that all these Dewan housing, the housing finance companies, they have lent a lot of money. That money has been lent having been borrowed from public sector banks. And these housing companies, they are not able to do well because the people who borrowed from them, they are not able to sell their houses. So it devolved on these NBFCs, and they could not repay to the banks. And so it is a perfect storm right now. So the survey wants, remember Raghuram Rajan, stress tests he would conduct for banks. Every bank, today's stock market is 40,000. If it went to 35, are you comfortable, or will you be hit beyond repair? If it goes to 30,000, if dollar goes to 80 rupees, are you okay? If your assets are doubtful and so on and so forth. If this many tens of thousands of crores of rupees don't come back to you, are you okay? So he will simulate a stress and see the impact on the bank and accordingly prescribe safeguards for them so that banks don't fail. Similarly, this survey also has proposed that you should have an index to indicate the NBFC health score so that you can prevent rather than be caught napping. If you could prevent, and also lend to those NBFCs which require it rather than keep lending to those who don't require. So the precious capital of the banks should be lent to at times those NBFCs that require the capital, so that capital means the finance, so that they do not fall into a crisis. So judicious use of the banking financial resources and in time preventing the NBFC crisis, which caught us by dirty surprise 2018 August, starting with I, L and FS. That's, some people call it the Lehman moment for India, but you see, we don't know anything more than this. I don't want to exaggerate. Whether I'm talking truth or not, I have no idea, because it is such a bad thing that I would rather hold back some details than keep everything on the table as a matter of verbal strategy. You know why? It's not a very pleasant thing to talk about, nor has it happened in America. So I would say, yes, it happened, number one, and RBI swung into picture, number two, and the government also helped them, number three, and today the crisis is behind us. This is the best way to put it. So NBFC health score they want. And now comes the survey and why it has hit the headlines. Thalinomics. In India, one word is enough to fill your thali. See, words are what fill your thali. We don't really require 10 course and 12 course meal. Words. 12 words are enough for you to forget food till dinner time. So the survey gives it plentifully, thali full of this concept. What is the concept? Thalinomics. See, I'll break it down for you. See, thalinomics is basically the economics behind the thali, vegetarian and the non-vegetarian. Yes. So what goes into your thali? Non-veg, whatever, meat, fish, egg, and whatever. And rice is common. Rice or whatever, the cereals are common. Pulses are also common. And variation is only, non-veg has this meat and all that, and these people have something else. So they have taken a standard veg meal and non-veg meal since the middle of the first decade of the century and tracked the prices as a, this is where the questions arise, till 2019. So the price of the thali as a proportion of the salary of the employees of the organized sector in the country as indicated, as they are linked to the CPI, industrial workers. There is inflation. That inflation sees that your wage is protected because the DA comes along with the inflation. CPI, industrial workers, consumer price index, industrial workers. But these are the only privileged people. Others don't have salary rising. So as your salary rises, the rise in the price of the thali is not commensurate. It is much less. My salary went from 100 to 200 and the plate price went up from 10 to 15. It rose, but it became more affordable because 100 to 200, 10 to 15. My salary jumped 100%, while the thali price jumped only 50%. So it became affordable. That is the thalinomics. Thali is real, but the economics behind is a little rigged. I'll tell you why. It's very simple. That CPI, industrial workers linked, wages of the organized sector. How much of Indian employment is organized sector? And how many of them have their wage linked to the CPI IW? That's not the majority. That is about 20-25% maybe. And for rest of the people, see, this Thalinomics says that because of the agricultural reforms undertaken by the country since 2016, the prices of food grains have fallen, and that is behind the thali becoming more affordable. That is questionable because food prices fell not because of the reforms entirely. Yes, you have done tremendous reforms for the pulses. You have given them MSP, they grow it. And also you have a price stabilization scheme for pulses. And so you took them when they were quoting very low, and you went into the market when they were quoting high. That's how with the price stabilization fund you have stabilized the pulses prices. That surely contributed to the stabilization of pulses prices in the market. But one of the reasons why the food became so affordable and the thali became so affordable relatively was also because of the collapse of demand because of certain factors in the economy. You see, the disruptive impact of demonetization and GST was such that some of the money that would have gone into the market was not there, demand was not there, consumption was less. And this is also borne out by the consumption survey, whose data we have not revealed because the quality issues related to data, led to their being held back. Now, the point is, if you have to break down all the economics related to why the thali became affordable before the food prices shot up, survey talks about it. 2019, November, December, that is a few months back, food prices have shot up to 14% is the food index. 14%. That's possibly because of the floods, some of the crop being destroyed, and also transportation networks being disrupted, etc. Short-term factors, not long-term. So, thali becoming affordable. Why is there so much of malnutrition? Why has the consumption fallen? And farmers' incomes are not tagged to the CPI, and they are not having a rosy picture about their incomes. So net Thalinomics is praisable only to an extent. You already have Rajan spoke truth, Raghuram Rajan. He gave dosanomics. Dosa. Yeah? There are a variety of dosas, but the common denominator is the dosha. Yes, masala, onion, rava, whatnot. But basic dosa. He said it absolutely right. He said, those days people were asking him, reduce the rate, boost the demand and consumption. He said it's not the reduction of rate that decides the landing of the dosa on the table. It is the supply of dosa. If you reduce the rate, what happens? Reduce the rate. Even if you make it zero, at zero rate of interest, you may still not have people picking up additional dosa, because dosa is the supply side. The confidence of the consumer. I'll have a dosa today if I think my tomorrow is secure. Otherwise, I and another two friends will go share a dosa. Please. Or even that, I will not. I'll remember those days when I had dosa. So, nostalgic about dosa. So please understand, rate and dosa are remotely related, and dosa has to do with more of rice and this, that, vegetable, oil, and lots of restaurants coming up, so many cooks turning out. That has to do with growth, and it is not. You can't cook a index. So you had a dosa index, which I thought was perfectly done. And then we talked about the Big Mac index. The Big Mac index is you compare the purchasing power of two currencies and find out the real value. Yes, the market value. Yeah. Yeah, there should be demand. How do you get the demand? Not by rate cut. Demand should be, please understand. Yeah. So there should be demand. Tell me how to create demand then. Look up the survey and how do you create demand? The PM Kisan, will it create demand for dosa? It will create demand for, a little bit of, a little more of cabbage. Yes, one more onion. That's all. But dosa is a fairly elite affair, and I want it to be a mass affair for which I should be confident about tomorrow. When consumer is confident, business will be confident. When I consume, you will invest. When I'm not consuming, keeping the money for tomorrow, whatever I'm not even looking up the RBI rate. Why? I can't borrow the money. When I'm not even spending the money I have in my pocket, you're asking me to borrow and spend on dosa. Which planet are you? See, so, you have to get your right diagnosis. So that revival of economy is a serious matter. But I have no problem with thalinomics. It's a useful concept, number one. How much is a thali in Chennai? How much is it in Jodhpur? How much is it in Delhi? I would like to compare. Where is the inflation? And I would like to break it down. Rice, the cereals, pulses, vegetables, and the fuel. Break it down. And in Jodhpur, if it's costing me more, why is it costing me more? Is it because of fuel? Or is it because of pulses? So this concept will yield enough for you to analyze the inflation in the country and enable the goods to be made affordable for the consumers. I'm not emptying the value of the concept at all. All I'm saying is it is just a start and we require to fill lots more details here. And just as your Big Mac index worked for you cross country, this could work for you cross a city, cross town in the country to track the inflation of food. You see, a thali is food. So it's a decent concept. I have no problem at all. But this is only the start of the concept. We need to take it beyond this. That was a survey. Essentially, you could talk a lot of things about the survey, but for our discussion, because all other aspects of it, the fiscal, the monetary, the banking, the other, we discuss them as separate chapters, so we don't have to, narrow it down to a single survey. But otherwise, the survey attracted the national attention for the concepts I have just now discussed. Thalinomics, I'm tempted to put it on the board. Thali. Thalinomics. Dosa, I'll put dosa also on the board, not on your tip. Dosanomics. And then, of course, the Big Mac of the economist. Big Mac index. Thalinomics, I have no hesitation in saying, will evolve as a comparative tool for food prices across the country. I have no problem saying that. And then all your Temasek. Singapore entity. And then he talks about network products. Even our Honorable Finance Minister talked about network products in her speech, which is a historic speech for the length of it. 2 hours, 45 minutes. Yeah. And there was a bit of French also in that. Little bit. Yes. A disease of animals. A French name is there. She knew French and all. So, network product, NP, if you want abbreviation also, NP. And then Temasek, the Singapore. Yeah, this is the substance of the survey for our purposes. With this, you can easily find your way around. Now, all this I have put it in print. This much I have put it in print, and that'll trigger your imagination, etc. Then you come to the budget. This budget, I have given some questions at the end of the chapter on the budget. We'll talk of all these questions a little later, but before that, let's get some content of the budget. See, this budget is about taxation, in which we don't have to go into all sorts of little things. We have to talk about the income tax. Income tax. See, basically, you have so many exemptions. Put your money insurance up to a point, you don't have to pay tax on that amount. Put it in a house, some more exemption, and so on. Now, our finance minister gave you a choice. You remember September 2019, while giving a massive slash on the corporate tax, you were offered a choice: either you come this side without exemptions, or you stick in the existing mode with exemptions. See, so now they have copied it for the income tax, personal income tax also. There are two ways about it. She reduced the rates if you are in the plan B, that is A was the original one, B is what you got introduced from the upcoming fiscal year. So what happens here? Rates are down 10%, 15, 20, all sorts of. Originally, when we discussed taxation reforms in the country, we said that the number of slabs has been reduced. That is a part of the simplification. Now you got 5 to 7.5, 7.5 to 10, 10 to 12.5, 12.5 to 15, and then you go to after the one whatever, then you have 30 and all sorts. This is back to 70s and 80s, where too many slabs. You see, after all, tomorrow you will be a IRS officer. You have to tell people comply. You give them 3 slabs, that's all. If possible. Why is everyone criticizing GST? 0, 5, 12, 18, 28, and God knows, all the cess. So the simplification requires that you reduce the slabs, but then you have to balance the simplification and rationalization, not only slabs but also government's revenue. And therefore, in their wisdom, with the wealth of data that they have coined this sort of a, ladder. So 5 days start. Now, you are selling it as simplification. Is it simplification? In a sense, it is, because now when I am filing my returns, I will tell my, officer, see, I have taken life insurance, therefore I don't have to pay tax on 10 rupees. I have borrowed X amount of money, and so for building a house, so I don't have to pay Y, because it's subjected to. So all those complexities are gone. Now it is very simple. My income is 10 rupees. I fall in the 10% bracket. I pay you 10 rupees and be done with that. But then, is it so simple as it appears? I feel part of the simplicity is deceptive, because we are not talking about investing in a Naxal-infested area. We are talking young people. When they get their job, man and wife, within 5 to 10 years, they would like to build a house. Are you telling them, no, go to a mall and blow it up? Don't buy a house? If you buy a house, you have to pay more tax, exemption, this and that. What are you telling them? Are you telling them don't insure their life? Yeah, what are you telling them? So you are telling them, if you want to pay less, you have to be without exemptions. Simplification doesn't mean discard all the exemptions. Discard those exemptions which the corporates are enjoying without any need. But don't drop the exemptions that ordinary people, middle class, etc. enjoy. So this sort of a pursuit of walking into a paradigm without exemptions as a desirable goal may not be, you may not be able to support it. But still, what do you tell the government? You tell the government, yeah, it's an option. Don't like it? Be in the old, model. You like it? Come this side. And we have to give the benefit of doubt to the government, because if they did not experiment, how will they know? If they had experimented, how it would have worked? So next year we will know how it works. And it's not a cast in stone policy. It is only a policy that has been made now. We will see how it works. And if GST is any example, the government has been very proactive in addressing the grievances of the people involved. So this is IT bit. Another thing is Dividend Distribution Tax. See, what happens is, you are a company and you make 100 rupees of profit. And this 100, you give 20 rupees as a dividend. And the 20 rupees was taxed by the government. And now the government has scrapped the dividend distribution tax in the hands of the company, but the people who are receiving the dividend, it is taxed in their hands. I don't know. If this is not cronyism, what else is cronyism? Tell me. You are telling the companies, don't bother, you don't have to pay tax on the dividend you distribute. But you are telling ordinary people, oh, you got dividend, cough up, tax on that. At what rate? Whatever the rate that applies to you, 10, 20, 15, 30, whatever. So this again, now what the problem is, you want me to go to the mall, you want me to consume and create demand, in which case you have to ensure that, why are you taxing my dividend? Don't tax my dividend. Number one, how many people will buy shares now? Because the dividend they get will get taxed. Number two, how many people can go to the market and buy things because part of their income is taxed because it is the dividend tax? Once again, the reform you are contemplating is getting defeated. So savings you may not be able to promote because I wanted to save by buying a house. You are telling me I won't be eligible for exemption. And even insurance is not a pure, insurance. It is also savings. They invest in the stock market, bond market, and generate returns for you. Even that I won't be able to do. So, the so-called simplification, if you dissect, may not hold because it is eating up the savings when the rate of savings, household savings, is coming down in the country. So, I have to share this thought with you. I have shared the thought with you. And you balance your critique of these changes in the tax. And also, you want to spend on health? There is a health cess. There is already a health cess. And there is one more health cess. You want to import the medical devices, all the stents and all that. On that, there will be a 5% cess that will be collected to spend on health. So, we know that you collect 5%, but how are we to know whether you will spend it on health or not? Yes.
Dividend distribution.
Yeah.
When the company distributes the dividend to the shareholders, is the taxation is on the whole dividend or like individual dividend that is distributed?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So, 100 rupees was your profit. In that 20 rupees, you used up as dividend distribution. Earlier, this 20 rupees was taxed in the hands of the company. Dividend, you are distributing, you are the company. The company has to pay the government dividend distribution tax, DDT. Now, this 20 is coming to, these are the shareholders. I've got 10 rupees and, I've got 1 rupee and somebody got 50 paisa, etc. 1 rupee, 1 rupee, 1 rupee. So, I'm already, let us say, this is actually wrong to say. Wrong means not on my part, but I heard somebody say this. He's a responsible person. See, if my annual income is less than 5 lakh rupees, is it conceivable that I will hold shares which will give me dividend? 100 rupees, 1000, etc. Negligible. Yeah. So the dividend is taxed essentially for those people who receive it basically in bulk. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. So the rate at which you pay tax on the dividend that you receive is the bracket in which you fall. If you are in the 10% bracket, okay, my income is 6 lakhs. I have got 1 lakh of dividend is stratospheric. Nobody gets it that I know. So, okay, whatever I got, 50,000, let's say, that's very, very high, very, very high. 50,000 dividend is, the super high. So, where am I? 6.5 lakh. So, what rate applies to me? The 10%. Your income is already, say, 25 lakhs and you got a dividend of 6 lakhs. You are into 31, you fall into that bracket. Whatever the bracket into which you fall after adding the dividend income, then it may also so happen that this can be a bit of a problem. Right now, you are in the 20% bracket. Dividend income, 50,000 rupees, pushes you to the 30%, which means your goddamn dividend is a hole in your pocket. You could have got away paying 2 lakhs of tax. Because of this dividend of 50, you are paying 10% more. You have to immediately sell those shares then. Yeah? So the whole point is, it is taxed in the hands of those who are the recipients of the dividend. So that is about the, taxes. Then, the fiscal area. Fiscal. Here also a little bit of circus is there. Fiscal, little bit, or may not be little bit. See, yeah. Dividend. You are the company. You are giving 20 rupees, 20%, 20 rupees as the dividend. So on that 20 rupees, you have to pay whatever the tax, 30%, 35%, whatever the rate, you have to pay, company pays. I've got 1 rupee of dividend. That is not taxable for me. That's not taxable income for me because you paid the tax. Unless in the original law, that is still there till the current fiscal, if your dividend income is 10 lakh rupees or more, currently, you have to pay some 10% tax on that. 10 lakh of dividend income is a mind-blowing amount. So it is super rich. Yeah. Now, all the dividend that is distributed, the company doesn't come into picture at all as far as paying the tax is concerned. The 20 has gone to 20 people, 1 buck each. That 1 buck adds to me, and which bracket do I get into? Accordingly, I'll pay the rate. Yes, you got it now. So it is taxable in the hands of those who receive the dividend, which in my view will hurt the investment in the stock market, number 1, financial savings, number 2, consumption, number 3, because you have to keep more money in my pocket so that I'll consume. Yeah? That's the problem. So fiscal policy for the current year, 3.8% of GDP is your fiscal deficit. You have off budget. First time you want to praise the government, you can say for the first time the budget documents have an appendix in which the off budget fiscal items like FCI, Food Corporation of, you see, I'm subsidizing food. I need to spend 100. I'm spending 50. I'm asking FCI to borrow and a warehouse, procure and all that. So FCI, National Highway Authority of India, Power Finance Corporation, they're all the government agencies which are borrowing because the government is unwilling to borrow, through its budgetary route. But this is also guaranteed by the government. If they can't repay, government has to eventually repay. So that is off budget, financing. And you add both 3.8, and that could be somewhere. It should be about 5% of the GDP for the central government itself. Point number one. And for next year, you are targeting 3.5%. See, there is a clause within the FRBM. You know who suggested the clause? 15th Finance Commission. You know when they suggested? Maybe the day before the budget used it. Yeah? What a lightning speed. They have accepted. They have accepted the recommendation number one, because it helps them depart from the fiscal deficit target in the FRBM by 0.5% in case the growth fell or for any other, a growth related reason. So they have used it. The original budget target was 3.3, and so they made it 3.8, which is legal according to the amended FRBM, which is a finance bill. But then Rangarajan says the deviation of 0.5 should be on 3, not on 3.3. But he is not correct, because, see, 3 comes if you are already at 3.5. But if you are at 3.3, you targeted 3.3, 0.5. You can't be very rigid about it. So that's okay. That is your fiscal deficit target for the upcoming year and the current year. And off budget also I have told you, plus the deficit I have told you, deviation. Net, see, the whole point is, this is a very important point. There is Consolidated Fund of India. There is Public Account of India. The government has been borrowing from the market, basically banks, and that is put into the CFI, and they are taking from CFI. Now, the small savings. The small savings which the post office essentially raises, small amounts, that goes into National Small Savings Fund. From there you were on lending it to the states, but the state said it's very costly, so you have to borrow it yourself. Now the whole point is, Government of India is say approximately 7.5. It is borrowing 7.5 rupees, 7.5 lakh crores. It is borrowing this fiscal. 5 is from the market, 2.5 is from small savings. The problem with this is twofold problem. One is you have to pay an interest rate which is very high. That means servicing of the loan is very costly. That means the money that can be used for productive expenditure comes down. Point number one. And for that reason, you will reduce the interest rates on small savings. And that will hit savings number one, women number two, old people number three. Because old people put their money in the post office, draw interest income, and on that day carry on. You're hitting that. You're hitting women. Can you say this to the UPSC and get away? I don't think so. So what will you tell them? You will tell the UPSC that, sir, government does not want to crowd out the private investment from the market, sir, and therefore, sir, the government is looking towards the small savings and leave money for the private sector to borrow from the banks. And UPSC is thrilled about it. Super thrilled. So, you know, that is about the small savings part, and that's a very important one. And still in the nominal GDP, how much are you expecting? You are assuming actually nominal GDP 10%. That is inclusive of inflation. It's realistic, but you see, we know inflation is 7.5. We know inflation is going to be around here about 5, 4.5, 5, 5.5, because oil is uncertain, geopolitics is uncertain, rupee is uncertain, and you also want to help the farmers by keeping the food prices high. And floods are nothing new to India, they're there all the time. You know, unseasonal rains are also there. Put all that together and you have a situation where inflation is not coming down anytime soon, so 5.5. So if your nominal GDP you are assuming 10, then again growth rate is also 4.5. We are assuming inflation, we are assuming 5.5. So how does the economic survey say that your growth for next year will be between 6 and 6.5? Where do you get this growth from? When the government itself is assuming 10% nominal GDP, I don't know. I mean, when are we getting to 6, 6.5? In which case, the nominal GDP should be 11, 12. So this is, as much as you praise it for being real, number one, realistic, you should also be worried unless you are a believer in keep a small target and keep your achievement big. Yeah, modesty in aim, but you know, overachieve. Maybe that is your goal, I have no idea. But then 10% is a bit of a shocker, because generally the nominal GDP is exaggerated. And God save you if this 10 is exaggerated. So that's a bit of a problem. Now, yeah. Slightly louder, please. 2 dates. Rates, rates. Income tax rates. No, which budget, which country? Not India, not the day before yesterday. Please understand, the Honorable Finance Minister herself, no finance minister says this. It is an assumption. But she, being an economist, she said explicitly the assumption behind the budget numbers is a nominal GDP growth of 10%. Categorical. There are not two numbers. There are a million numbers. But as far as the nominal GDP number is concerned, the assumption is, that's it. That's it. It's very categorical. You can't be ambiguous about this. You can say ambiguously anything else, but everything else hinges on this number. 10% means the savings, the investment, the borrowing, the privatization, the foreign investment, and riding on them, the policies. Everything hinges on this number. So you can't have two numbers here. Just like you can have only one roll number, there can be only one nominal GDP number assumed. Yeah. So there you are. Now we are moving to disinvestment. See, we don't know inflation. If you can assume some inflation, if you know the nominal GDP, then you subtract the inflation, you will get the real. So now your question is, why are we talking of nominal GDP? See, nominal GDP is the basis for your taxation. Buy this, I bought this at 5 rupees, yeah, and the tax is 50 paisa. So its market price inclusive of indirect tax of 50 paisa is 5. So the 50 paisa I paid is on a base of 4 rupee 50 paisa, which is the market price that includes the inflation. Yes? So I'm paying tax on the current market price, not on last year. So you necessarily will have to have nominal GDP, be it for taxation, inflation, everything nominal GDP matters. Real is a notion, means it's an abstraction. Nominal is the real. Yeah? Taxation, what's more real than that? To get rid of Air India is the main goal. Nobody wants to pick it up. But the big issue here is, the real issue means issue, Life Insurance Corporation. You have to divest from Life Insurance Corporation before life goes out of it. Imagine a scandal hits you. Today its valuation, you know its valuation? 55 lakh crores. Valuation means the market capitalization. The number of shares multiplied with the market price. It is not listed, so you have to assume by comparing it with the relevant companies, similar companies. Reliance today is the highest at 10 lakh crores. LIC is 5.5 times more. Just 1/3 of your Aramco. 1/3 we'll see. Aramco is $1.7 trillion. This is 55 lakh. So you convert, and this is quite a bit of the Aramco. And today I have seen the senior most officer in the government say not more than 10%. We will do it by IPO, initial public offer. 10% of 55 lakhs is how much? 5.5 lakh crores. Even Uttar Pradesh budget is 4 lakh crores. LIC is UP plus and Bihar. Yeah. LIC is larger than life. It should be LLIC, larger than life. So you have to get out fast. You'll still control it, you know, you will, but then the whole problem is, you will buy the shares of LIC if it is corporatized. It should not be tied to the apron strings of the government. And one more banking reform that the Honorable Finance Minister said was, banks will be encouraged to tap the capital. You know, why should I recapitalize you? I'm the government, you are the banks. You go to the market directly and then ask them to subscribe to your bonds, subscribe to your shares, whatever. So, you see, this is another reform. The dependence on the budgetary capital for infusion into the banks that are running short of these Basel requirements is a welcome move. You see, welcome move, of course, because I want the budget resources to be spent on the budget is taxpayers' money. If your taxpayers' money is being used to bail out the banks that have lent to Malayas and Niravs, then where is the trust? You talk to trust as if this is a bottle of trust. Trust is so deep-seated in our social behavior that as long as my money is being used to bail out the banks that have fallen into a pit because they have not done the due diligence or they have had collusion with the cronies, how can I have my trust back? I cannot. So that is why the budget says that I'm not going to recapitalize. You go to the market and then raise your capital. That is another reform for the banks. Growth process, textiles, leathers, etc. They have done something which is open to debate. They have raised the tariffs on the import of leather, on the import of microelectronics, etc. because they are job intensive, you have to make them in India. Is that the right way? I have no idea. Generally, you have to create jobs while beating the competition globally. You cannot be sheltered 70 years after your republic came into being today. And you may have inefficiency both on the quality and on the price also. This is protectionism. You know, it smacks of non-economic thinking. So for a while it is okay, but not, you know, for a long while, because you have to compete. You cannot hide behind the protectionist tariff walls and so on and so forth. And then the Honorable Finance Minister also accepted the logic of the survey that we have to be a part of the global value chains, and assemble in India should be promoted. Assemble in India should be promoted. That's what she has accepted. That is another part of the budget. Infrastructure, it's basically details. There is nothing to explain here. And then tourism, energy, railways, all there is nothing to explain. There is agriculture, livestock. I can't possibly talk about the diseases of the animals here. So let's go into the, there's something very interesting about who is a resident. See, this is still going on. NR, you know, there are so many alphabets. There is NRI, there is OCI, and if you are ordinarily resident, then within the NRI, there is NOR, not ordinarily resident, then ordinarily resident. So basically, you see, it's like this. If you've been in the country for 183 days, you are a resident. Outside India for 183 days, you are a non-resident. And what's the benefit if you are an NRI? The benefit is that all that you are earning outside India is taxed outside India. Yes? So you have your business running here, you will pay tax here. You have your money coming from outside, you may not pay. If you are in all this UAE, etc., then there is no income tax there and you pocket all the money. Why not? You're working very hard. See, I'm a worker who has gone to Saudi Arabia, working there for a paltry sum, and I'm spending a little bit, sending rest of it to my family somewhere in India. That's okay. But some people have done tax avoidance here. Tax avoidance. In tax avoidance, what happens is, you are very smart. Two kinds of people. One is 183 days outside India and they earn a lot of money. Why are they there outside India 183 days? Because they don't want to pay tax on so much money. They may even be, you know, receiving the salary from the multinational outside, etc., etc. So basically, what is tax avoidance here? You are abusing the law. You are not using the law. You are abusing the law. I wanted to help you by not taxing you because you are outside. Your income is outside for the required number of days. What are you doing? You are purposefully stationing yourself outside for 183 days so that you are an NRI and so much of your income is not taxed. This is called avoidance without any, you know, substantive justification. There is no commercial justification here. Why are you receiving your income there? And there is another category also. They are resident nowhere. Not in India, non-resident. You are somewhere in Hong Kong, from there you hop to Singapore, from there to Vietnam. So 365 days you are not a resident anywhere. So you are the most wonderful stateless person. The opposite of a Rohingya. He is helpless and you are abusing the law limitless. So our tax administrators are watching you. They have said if you are stateless, then you come to India. All your global income, including the income you may be getting in India, the entire thing is totaled and that is the tax base for your liability. So these are the stateless people. NRIs, you know, the ordinary worker, the bona fide worker in Saudi Arabia is not impacted because he is not cooking accounts. So if you are a stateless person, we won't allow you to abuse. Even the NRI, except the Saudi UAE types, we will ask him to stay outside India for 240 days so that genuinely he is non-resident, and only then we will not tax him. Anything less, he is a resident. So 183 is not enough. You hang around outside. Sir, I have no work. You go around. Do what? Don't come to the country. If you come to the country, we'll tax you. So 280 days you hang around outside. Only then you are an NRI. So you are an NRI. And on top of that, it seems there is one more differentiation. Oh, you are ordinarily resident. You are a resident. In the resident, there are two categories. Ordinarily non-resident. Put it this way. Not ordinarily resident, ordinarily resident. We are all residents. So the scope for subjectivity on the part of the tax department is dramatically reduced here. So that's a help to the people who are in that bracket. But bona fide workers, they have nothing to fear. Okay, I'm in Saudi Arabia and I anyway don't come here. I've gone there to work. Why 240? I'll be there 340 also. I come only for Dasra Diwali. So I'm not a guy who can game the system, please. I'm an ordinary guy. Whereas the real sharks are there, you have to handle them. But then somebody said, then what happens to all the people who applaud Modi when he goes abroad? They're all in this now. How it is? They're all here. So, but it's okay. When you make a policy, you don't make policy for your personal reasons. You make it for the country, which is revealed in the fact that you have crafted it to prevent the abuse of the NRI laws and taxation laws, etc., etc. Now, let's see the questions. Is the budget growth oriented? There are no two answers. We have to say yes. So how do you say it is growth oriented? Sir, it talked about trust. And when people trust the government, the productivity improves. It talked about network products. It talked about infrastructure. It talked about consumption and demand by creating a new structure for personality. It has made people spenders. Yes, because you won't save and all that. And so, this is how there is, this budget is growth oriented. You could say that. And is this budget in line with the Paris Climate Accord? Yeah. The Honorable Finance Minister said, close down the thermal factories whose emissions are much higher because of lack of good technology. She also said, I'll give you Kusum, that solar, Urja. And then she also says that we are encouraging solar energy, etc., etc. So it is, of course, in line with the climate change and so many others. Is the deviation from FRBM justified? It is justified. Why? Because when growth goes down like it is, your tax collections suffer and you have to borrow a little more. And encasing the 15th Finance Commission allowed it, but encasing 15th Finance Commission is now. What about the report about working with the FRBM that is submitted 2-3 years back when he said there has to be a fiscal council that has to be consulted for you to depart from the norm? Where is the fiscal council? It's not there. So, if you had a fiscal council, that would be better. What is RBI? See, what happens is, when RBI is primary lending, when you relax the norm of 3% because of slippage in the growth rate and the consequent fall in the tax collection, what happens is you have to borrow more. And if you borrow from the banks, it will be crowding out. So then, originally according to the FRBM, RBI can't directly be the primary lender to the government. Now, RBI can print and lend to the government. FRBM allows the RBI because you have taken the escape clause and diluted the fiscal deficit target. I have to borrow. I don't want to come to the banks. I'm borrowing a little more, 0.5%. I don't want to come to you because you have to lend to the private sector. I'm already borrowing from you. I'll ask the RBI to print and supply me primary credit. That's called primary borrowing, primary lending, primary credit, whatever you like to call. Directly between RBI and me. It's not that RBI gets me money from the market. RBI prints and lends to me. That stopped as a part of the FRBM in 2006. And if you deviate from the target, it gets revived. So that was your RBI's primary lending. The dual regime, a case of simplification. You have to say it is simplification. Yeah? You know, it is basically somebody tweeted about it. It is a party for the chartered accountants. It is a nightmare for the tax officers. You see, why too? Already he is overburdened, understaffed. And on top of that, I don't know, should I go here? Should I go there? And they are not switchable also. Once you take the housing loan exemption, it will be 15-year loan. So you stuck here. This is basically for the young people just before they start saving and, you know, investing and all that, for them to sort of party hard without any savings. You know, I think so. But nobody knows how it's going to work. We have to see for 1 year at least, 6 months at least, how it's going to work. Then we can talk about it. Till then, yes, we'll take the government's logic that it is a case of simplification. Then budget boost demand. Again, savings and demand. See, will it boost demand? Yeah, if I go to the type 2 of the IT, it will boost demand because I'm not investing, I'm not saving, so I'll spend. But then will it boost demand? You know, the dividend, again, you are taking away tax from me. If you did not, I would have spent it and that would have created demand. So yes, but you're spending so much on infrastructure, that will boost demand. Yes. And then you go into the stock market, you're privatizing, you're divesting. So much of option is there for the investors in the country. There will be so much of wealth creation, you know, in the language of the survey. And so, yes, that will create some demand. Though on the fringes, because, you know, not too many people are participating in the stock market. Sovereign wealth fund. See, basically, sovereign wealth fund is, the global sovereign wealth funds are there. Temasek is one. They go around the world picking up assets. Cheap. Assets can be financial, shares and all that. Assets can be companies. Assets can be all your natural gas fields, oil fields, uranium fields, agricultural fields, whatever. Assets can be physical also. Who knows? Maybe a university. Who knows? So that's picked up in the foreign money. And there are so many foreign sovereign wealth funds in the world whose money we require for our sovereign wealth funds being given exemption. Yeah.
Regarding this rate tax.
Which tax?
Income tax structure. So basically, you're putting more money in the hands of people. So in this present inflation won't come down. So the consumption and demand doesn't grow. So how does it grow?
So you are putting more money in the hands of the people by this, and you are saying that will boost demand, and that could also inflate. Why not? I'm ready for that kind of inflation. A demand-driven inflation is very good. Yes, and that will be an incentive for people to invest. Though this is a very kind of a small policy to, I want structural demand to rise. Not because among the, a few crores of people of income tax payers, all of them are already in the first, paradigm. Who will go to the next paradigm? I have no idea. Every income tax payer, I am more or less sure, has taken a loan for his own dwelling. Almost. Only the new people who will enter the tax bracket, yes, they have to choose and all that. I have no idea who will fall into this no exemption type, because the idea of working and earning is at the first drop of hat you rush to the bank and take a loan to build a house. Who will not take the exemption? I have no idea. So that's why I have said it's not even coming into force, and when it comes into force, we'll track it. Who are the people opting for it? Everyone will insure his life. Is there anyone who doesn't insure his life? There is nobody. Yeah. Similarly, everybody will, go for a dwelling, is aboard. There is nobody who will stay out of the exemption sort of type of IT, personal IT. So I really don't know who is, nobody knows what calculation drove them, because something is driving this government, like in the corporate tax, and so in the income tax. We will go to a system without exemptions. Nobody is against exemptions per se. People are against exemptions which are wasteful. Imagine you give loan to a person, ask him to build a house, on that he gets some tax concession. It's a multiplier. There will be houses built. He will take loan from the bank. Yes? And then people will buy all those infrastructure, mutual funds and all that. It's a phenomenal multiplier. And why you want to introduce a system without exemptions? These are not the exemptions people fought against. Exemptions of corporates which are handed out for no reason and they are a drain on your fiscal system. These are the exemptions you are fighting against. Not what a senior citizen tax exemption, small savings, house, this. So we have to wait and see what happens there. Yeah. The next question is this. Sovereign wealth funds, I told you. How does the tax rule change for the NRIs, etc.? I told you. First report to the Finance Commission, I'm coming there. Can the divestment target be met? That also I've told you, all the groundwork is done, and these are big ticket investments for others, divestments for you, and the government has started another Bharat bond type. That is, today I can buy a Bharat bond. I can also buy the other one, ETF of shares. You're all public sector companies, your shares I can buy bundled into an ETF. You're all public sector companies, your bonds I can buy bundled into an ETF. But I can't buy government securities bundled into an ETF. First time an ordinary person is made available the units of the government securities that are brought together as a ETF, exchange traded fund. That's also pretty good reform. So, a disinvestment, can it be met? See, what do you mean can it be met? I will not buy, I'm an ordinary guy. XYZ will not buy, they're all ordinary people. But the whole world is waiting to lap up the LIC. I told you LIC can be measured against Aramco. So, there will be foreign investment here, there will be LIC cannot invest in LIC, but there will be so many others who can invest. Institutional investors are there, SBI can invest. LIC is a mouth-watering corporation, but you have to change the law. You have to change the law, and it will take 1 year. The finance ministry itself is saying it will take at least 1 year for the LIC to, go into the market, the IPO. But 2.1, it depends upon the performance of the economy, performance of the global economy. They're all, risks that you always run. It depends on the performance of the economy, because 2.1 is a massive target. You've never done so much so far. So it is very high, number one, and it requires, so much of strategic planning, number two, appetite on the part of those who would like to subscribe, number three, So it is not ordinary. It may pose challenges, but I'm sure you can overcome them. That's about your budget. You ask me whatever you like. If you, 1 second, you must ask me not the foot and mouth disease. Yeah, conceptual stuff. Yeah, go ahead. Bilateral netting I can explain somewhat. Let's see. See, today banks have to keep aside capital for Basel requirements. That's a lot of money, they don't have it, and therefore they're looking to the government for recapitalization. And government is also running short, as you have seen from the fiscal deficit stuff. So somebody who worked in the Deutsche Bank and very experienced, we have him inside the government, principal economic advisor. He told the Honorable Finance Minister that, Madam, there is a bank and there is a borrower. Approximately. Bank lent him 100 rupees. He kept a collateral of 150. Or 125. So, effectively, there's only 25 rupees that's the difference. Your default and all that is later. So, today, the capital requirement on the bank are on 100. But if you net out, then the difference is only 25 rupees. If you calculate the capital requirements on the basis of 25 rupees, 10% of that 9% of 100 is how much? 9. 9% of 25 is how much? Less than 3 rupees. So the capital requirements of the banks to conform to the global norms are easily adhered to if this bilateral netting takes place, and then the burden on the banks to set aside capital eases. See, I'll justify it simple. These are the banks, and they are primarily for no fault of their own in a crisis, and they require capital. Give them capital, improve their health, boost their valuation. In course of time, the share price also goes up, and your capital comes back to you. Like Obama bailed out the GM in 2009, and when he sold the shares, he made so much of money for the government. So, you know, these are the decisions you take for temporary crisis. These banks are, you know, quite viable banks, profit-making banks, but they are in a crisis, temporary. Put your weight behind them, and they'll come back. So I don't go by that, but if the UPSC provokes you by saying so much of precious taxpayer money is given to cronies, you know, like this, then we have to, make sure that the right interpretation is given. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes. See, what to do in ICU? Our friend is saying, primary lending, won't it lead to inflation? Yeah. Now, so growth is falling. I have to spend. I don't want to crowd the market out. Market has only enough for me and the corporates up to a point. Then I will relax the norm, FRBM. I'll ask the RBI to print and supply me credit. I will spend it on growth. That will bring back, you see, investment and so on, supplies and so on. Initially, there is no doubt it will be inflationary. Initially, yes. You must come slow. to borrow from outside. You will relax. You see, there is a FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act. In that, you will make some changes. You will allow them to borrow. The technical rules will be followed. It's a very good idea because I gave the example of Delhi University. Like that, you have so many universities, and foreign institutions are educational institutions. They want to participate. So you must facilitate. Why should you look to the budget for resources when the whole world is interested in India's education sector? I think that's a meaningful policy, welcome policy. Yes, yes. In fact, they are allowed to access foreign money through ECB also, which is very good. Yeah. Any other question? See, externally means borrowing from external sources can take many routes. Are you not doing FPI, corporate bond? Are you not doing sovereign wealth fund? Are you not allowing them ECB? So you see, we are a growing economy, we require resources, and we'll tap every route possible. And we are tapping. Masala, we are tapping. Yeah? So what is it that we are not tapping? Yeah. Sala bond, if there is, we'll tap that also. Yes? Any bond. Why? We need capital, investment, growth to come back. We have to hit the 7%. Yeah? So this is a wonderful package of policies. Privatization. Privatization, will it lead to reduction of social benefits? We have to write a contract with the strategic investor. Don't stop reservation. Don't cut down the employees. And in fact, we may take another contractual commitment that, you have to expand your workforce by 5% every 2 years. So all that you can write into your contract. Yes, yes. You are accountable judicially, Article 12. So anyone else on the budget? 15th Finance Commission. It's a terrific set of recommendations. I'm very, very happy. I'll tell you why. See, we all know what the Finance Commission does. The criteria based on which the share of the states is distributed among them, they have changed. I've given you a diagram there. Pie. Yes. The word booty is used. You don't use booty. You use an acceptable term. The share of the states. Yeah. So, what are the criteria? Let's see. Per capita, population, area, forests, tax effort. Remember, in these, don't take them for granted. It's thanks to Encasing Commission that you've got it so good. The earlier commission had per capita. This commission, 45%. All of you are states and you are getting 100 rupees. In that, 45 rupees will be distributed among you depending upon how poor you are. Poorest state gets maximum. 45. This commission. Earlier, 50. Because if you go on giving to them because they are poor, they have a vested interest in remaining poor. Poverty is a new prosperity. Population, earlier, you gave by 71, 10%, 71 census. And by 2011 census, you gave 17.5%. Now, what a wonderful recommendation. 15% you are giving by 2011 and 12.5% you are giving as an incentive for those states who have performed well on the demographic front. Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra. You know, otherwise the entire 27.5% goes to UP. Anything left Bihar will take. Kerala guys will be kept, you know, I mean, they'll be, for being good, they're paying for it. So now Kerala, I never expected this because the mood of the nation is otherwise. So luckily, pleasantly, we have this surprise. 12.5% is the index for the booty for demographic performance. A class. Area is area. Area gets, let's see, some 15 or something. 12.5%, that gets 15. Forests get 10. And tax effort, because N.K. Singh is a very progressive civil servant. He feels like fish out of water unless he encourages performance. So he gave 2.5% to that. Tax effort. Tax effort is what? How much is the tax you can raise? How much are you raising? You can raise 100. You're raising 110. Nation can raise 100, but nation is raising 80. You are raising 90. I will give you more than what everyone gets. You are raising 70. I will give you less than what everyone gets. So tax effort 2.5% is lovely. All that adds up to 100%. And that is as far as how the, you know, breakup among the states goes. And its final report will come by October. That's effectively outside the examination, this calendar. We'll discuss it for later. When the current batch goes for interview next year, again N.K. Singh, again your share of the booty, all this. So that's where we are. I hope you picked it up. I have simplified it as much as it could be. I have not gone into all those, you know, cumbersome details. This is how you have to study, and that is the base for your study. These notes I have given is the base. Maybe it covers 100, maybe 95, maybe 90. That spurs you to work a little harder. So I wish you all the best.